Welcome to another episode on the Law Report. In today's episode, the topic for discussion is price gouging. Recently and just before the passage of Hurricane Melissa, while the Turks and Caicos Islands was preparing for effects from the passage of the hurricane, the Department of Trade, Industry, and Fair Competition issued a warning against price gouging. I did not know price gouging was a thing in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I will be back shortly to discuss the matter. Welcome back. On the 27th of October, 2025, the Department of Trade, Industry, and Fair Competition reminded all businesses and vendors across the Turks and Caicos Islands that price gouging during times of national emergency, including hurricanes, is strictly prohibited under the Consumer Protection Act 2016. The warning went on to say that any business found engaging in price gouging or other unfair business practices will be subject to fines as prescribed by the Consumer Protection Act. The department urged consumers to remain vigilant and to report any suspected incidents of price gouging by providing the following information: the name and location of the business, the items being sold and the price charged, and any supporting evidence, such as receipts or photographs. So let us look at the Consumer Protection Act. Section 33 deals with the issue of price gouging. Section 33 of the Act deals with misleading, deceptive or unconscionable conduct. Section 33. 1. States, a person shall not, in the course of trade or business, a. engage in conduct that is misleading or deceptive or is likely to mislead or deceive, b. make an unconscionable representation in respect of a particular transaction, and, in determining whether or not a representation is unconscionable, there may be taken into account that the person making the representation or his employer or principal knows or ought to know, i. that the consumer is not reasonably able to protect his interests because of his physical infirmity, ignorance, illiteracy, inability to understand the language of an agreement or similar factors. 2. That the price grossly exceeds the price at which similar goods or services are readily available to like consumers. c. Engage in unconscionable conduct in respect of a particular transaction, and, in determining whether or not conduct is unconscionable, there may be taken into account that the person is 1. withholding from the consumer material information, or providing material information in terms which cannot be understood by the consumer, and in particular, where the person knows or ought to know that the consumer is not reasonably able to protect his interests because of his physical infirmity, mental disorder or impairment, age, illiteracy, or inability to understand the language or similar factors. 2. Supplying and charging the consumer for goods and services which were not part of the transaction without first obtaining the agreement of the consumer. 3. Failing to make a full refund, or an appropriate refund, within 30 days from the date the consumer requested a refund, in circumstances where the person failed to supply or substantially supply goods or services under the terms and conditions of the transaction. 4. Placing a lien on property belonging to the consumer for the purpose of inducing the consumer to pay for the unauthorized supply of goods or services, either at the time the goods or services are supplied or at a later date. 2. A person who contravenes subsection 1 commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000. 3. For the purpose of this section, estimate means a representation, whether written or oral, indicating the likely price that will be charged in respect of consumer goods or services. Quote, means a written and signed representation setting out the actual price that will be charged in respect of consumer goods or services. So in a nutshell, price gouging is the action or practice of overcharging customers for something by sharply increasing its price, especially in order to take advantage of sudden high demand. And it is illegal to do so in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and so too in many other jurisdictions. Thank you for watching. If you learn anything from this episode, please like, share, comment. See you in my next episode. Cheers.